The swirling nebulae outside Zewextal's research station cast purple shadows across their laboratory. As the station's chief xenopsychologist, they had studied countless species across the galaxy, but nothing had prepared them for what they discovered in humanity's psychological profile. "This can't be accurate," Zewextal muttered, their crystalline appendages tapping rapidly against the holoscreen. The data streams showed patterns that defied every established principle of evolutionary psychology. Where other species developed clear flight-or-fight responses, humans showed something entirely different: they fought harder when cornered. Zewextal's assistant, Pelare, glided into the laboratory on anti-gravity pads. "Senior researcher, the Council requests your preliminary findings on Earth species assessment." "Tell them I need more time," Zewextal replied, their outer membrane flickering with stress patterns. "These readings challenge everything we know about survival instincts." Pelare's sensory stalks wavered with curiosity. "Surely they can't be that different from other carbon-based life forms." Zewextal projected a historical simulation onto the lab's main screen. "Watch this." The hologram showed a small group of humans defending a narrow pass against an overwhelming force. By all logical measures, they should have surrendered. The odds were impossible. Instead, they fought until the very end. "Perhaps it's an isolated incident," Pelare suggested. "If only." Zewextal pulled up hundreds more examples spanning human history. "They call them last stands. Other species see them as failures, but humans celebrate them. They've turned hopeless resistance into an art form." The laboratory's AI chimed in with an alert. "Update: human technological development has exceeded previous projections. Estimated time to FTL capability, 8 standard months." Zewextal's membrane paled. 8 months. That's half the time we originally calculated. They began compiling their findings with renewed urgency. "Pelare, help me prepare for an emergency council session. They need to understand what we're dealing with." As they worked, Zewextal studied footage of human space experiments. Where other species carefully calculated each advance, humans strapped themselves to explosive devices and pointed them at the stars. They celebrated their failures as stepping stones, learned from their mistakes instead of retreating from them. "Look at this," Zewextal highlighted a section of data. "Their bodies actually perform better under extreme stress. Instead of shutting down, they become stronger, faster, more focused. It's as if evolution gave them an override switch for their own limitations." The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for millennia through a delicate balance of power, relying on the fact that all known species had natural limits to their aggression. Humans didn't just push those limits, they seemed to ignore them entirely. Zewextal composed their report with trembling appendages. The Council needed to understand that traditional diplomatic approaches wouldn't work. Threats would be useless against a species that turned desperation into determination. Attempts at containment would likely be seen as challenges to overcome rather than boundaries to respect. "Include the cultural analysis," Pelare suggested, reviewing the report. "Their entertainment is particularly revealing." Zewextal nodded, adding sections about human media. They had stories about fighting against impossible odds, about standing alone against overwhelming forces. More telling still, they had a concept called spite, the willingness to accept harm to oneself just to defy an opponent. As the station's sun cycled dim to evening, Zewextal finalized their conclusion: humanity represented something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that had evolved to treat adversity as motivation rather than deterrent. The question wasn't whether humans would join the galactic community, their relentless drive made that inevitable. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for a species that didn't know how to give up. "Send the report," Zewextal instructed their system, watching as the data streamed toward the Council's central hub. Whatever happened next would reshape the galaxy's future. They could only hope the Council would understand the crucial point: humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their resources, but their absolute refusal to accept defeat. High Counselor Rithval paced the length of the orbital diplomatic station, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with anxiety. The human delegation would arrive within hours, and Zewextal's report had thrown all their careful protocols into chaos. "Run the simulation again," she ordered, watching as the holographic display showed the approaching human vessel. Unlike the sleek, organic curves of Council ships, the human craft was angular, practical, almost primitive by their standards. Yet according to the scans, it contained enough firepower to level a small moon. Senior diplomat Jintax floated nearby, his tentacles curled in thought. "Perhaps we're overthinking this. They did respond positively to our initial contact." "Did they?" Rithval projected the human response. Their message had been friendly enough, looking forward to peaceful dialogue and cultural exchange. But their ship had been running combat drills while sending it. "They call it peace through strength," a new voice added. Professor Krell entered the chamber, her crystalline form refracting the starlight. As the Council's leading xenohistorian, she'd been studying Earth's transmissions non-stop. "Their entire history is a paradox," Krell continued. "They simultaneously prepare for war while genuinely desiring peace. They develop weapons in hopes of never using them. They train for conflict while working for cooperation." The station's AI interrupted with an alert. The human ship had dropped out of FTL ahead of schedule, already adapting to Council space protocols with surprising speed. Rithval's markings flashed with surprise. Most species took days to adjust to the different physics of Council space. "They're hailing us," Jintax announced. Audio and visual. The human that appeared on screen wasn't what they expected. Commander Diana Santos stood straight-backed but smiling, her dark eyes showing curiosity rather than aggression. "Greetings, Council representatives. We apologize for our early arrival. Our engineers got a bit excited about testing the modified drive systems." Rithval exchanged glances with her team. The casual admission of modifying their engines mid-journey was exactly what Zewextal's report had warned about. Humans didn't just adapt, they improved, constantly pushing boundaries simply because they could. "Welcome, Commander Santos," Rithval responded carefully. "We're honored by your presence." "The honor is ours," Santos replied, then grinned. "I hope you don't mind, but our science team has some questions about your station's quantum field harmonics. We've never seen anything quite like it." Before Rithval could respond, one of her junior diplomats burst into the chamber. "High Counselor. We're detecting unauthorized scans from the human vessel. They're studying our defense systems." Instead of denying it, Santos shrugged. "Force of habit, I'm afraid. We scan everything, it's how we learn. But I assure you, our intentions are peaceful." That was the moment Rithval understood what Zewextal had tried to explain. Humans didn't follow the expected patterns. They could simultaneously prepare for war while genuinely seeking friendship. They could study how to defeat you while hoping to never need that knowledge. "Perhaps," Rithval said slowly, "we could arrange a technical exchange. Our engineers would be fascinated by your drive modifications." Santos's smile widened. "Now you're speaking our language, Counselor." As arrangements were made for docking procedures, Krell whispered to Rithval, "Notice how they're matching our protocols but also improving on them. They're not just adapting to our systems, they're already thinking about how to make them better." Rithval watched as the human ship maneuvered with precise efficiency. Yes, humans were dangerous, but perhaps not in the way they'd feared. Their danger lay not in aggression but in their relentless drive to push every boundary, test every limit, improve every system they encountered. The question wasn't whether they could be trusted, it was whether the Council was ready for a species that would never stop asking, what if, and why not. As the airlocks engaged and the first human delegation prepared to board, Rithval made her decision. They wouldn't try to contain humanity's drive to explore and improve. Instead, they would attempt something unprecedented, they would try to direct it toward cooperation rather than competition. The galaxy was about to change forever, and for once, the Council would embrace that change rather than resist it. The emergency alarms shattered the careful atmosphere of diplomacy. Commander Santos and High Counselor Rithval were in the middle of their third cultural exchange session when the station's AI blared its warning. Multiple unidentified vessels dropping out of FTL, the AI announced. Energy signatures matched known Drachnid pirate configurations. Santos's relaxed demeanor shifted instantly to alert focus. How many? 7 warships, the AI responded. They're jamming standard communication channels. The Drachnids were the galaxy's most notorious raiders, having evolved from pack predators who never attacked unless victory was certain. They struck only when they had overwhelming force, which made them particularly dangerous. We need to evacuate, Jintax insisted, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. The station's defenses can't withstand a Drachnid fleet. But Santos was already accessing the station's tactical displays, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Your defense grid is more capable than you realize. The problem is your targeting algorithms, they're too predictable. Rithval watched in fascination as the human commander began reconfiguring their defense systems. Where Council military doctrine emphasized conservative, calculated responses, Santos was implementing what she called irregular warfare patterns. The Drachnids rely on calculating perfect attack vectors, Santos explained while working. They expect their targets to react in logical ways. So let's be illogical. The first Drachnid ships launched their attack runs, their organic metal hulls gleaming with predatory purpose. But instead of the organized defense they expected, the station's weapons fired in seemingly random patterns, creating a chaotic web of energy that caught the lead ship off guard. Impossible, Krell whispered, watching the tactical display. They're actually falling back to regroup. Santos grinned. Predators get confused when prey doesn't behave like prey. Now, about our ship. The human vessel, smaller than any of the Drachnid warships, had begun moving in ways that defied conventional space combat tactics. It accelerated directly toward the enemy fleet, then executed maneuvers that seemed suicidal until they proved brilliant. What are they doing? Jintax demanded, watching as the human ship appeared to spiral out of control. Creating chaos, Rithval realized, her markings pulsing with sudden understanding. They're not fighting by our rules or even the Drachnids' rules. They're making their own. The human ship's erratic movement had scattered the Drachnid formation, forcing the pack hunters to break their carefully coordinated attack patterns. In space combat, this should have been fatal for the smaller vessel. Instead, it was the Drachnids who seemed increasingly desperate. Commander, one of Santos's crew called over the comm, permission to test the new point defense system. Granted, Santos replied. Just try not to break physics this time. The human ship suddenly bristled with smaller weapons, targeting the gaps in the Drachnid shields that no Council species had ever thought to exploit. The raiders, faced with an opponent that refused to follow any predictable pattern, began to retreat. They're running, Krell announced, her crystalline form vibrating with excitement. The Drachnids never run. Everyone runs when the cost outweighs the benefit, Santos said, still focused on the tactical display. We just had to change their cost-benefit analysis. As the last Drachnid ship vanished into FTL, Rithval turned to Santos. You knew your ship couldn't defeat their fleet conventionally. Of course not, Santos agreed. So we had to be unconventional. Sometimes the best way to win isn't to be stronger, it's to be more unpredictable. The station's diplomatic hall, usually a place of careful protocol, had become a testament to humanity's unique approach to problems. Where Council species sought perfect solutions, humans embraced imperfect but effective ones. Where others saw impossible odds, they saw opportunities to rewrite the rules. I believe, Rithval said slowly, her markings now showing patterns of deep thought, we need to seriously reconsider our approach to galactic defense. She gestured at the tactical displays still showing the aftermath of the battle. Clearly, there are advantages to thinking differently. Santos nodded. We have a saying on Earth, necessity is the mother of invention. When you can't overpower a problem, you have to outthink it. The council members watched as human engineers began helping repair the station's systems, already suggesting improvements. In less than an hour of crisis, humanity had proven both their worth as allies and their potential to revolutionize the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. The age of careful, predictable protocols was over. The era of human innovation had begun. In the days following the Drachnid attack, the Council's central command hub buzzed with unprecedented activity. Holographic displays showed dozens of joint Human Council engineering projects, while Commander Santos and her crew worked alongside Council specialists to integrate their different approaches to technology and tactics. Research Director Tornval, his bioluminescent patterns showing both excitement and concern, studied the latest simulation results. This shouldn't work, he muttered, watching as human engineering principles merged with Council biotech. The energy patterns are completely chaotic. Exactly, Lieutenant James Harrison replied, his dark hands moving confidently across the control interface. That's what makes it effective. We're not trying to achieve perfect harmony, we're harnessing the chaos itself. The project before them represented something unprecedented, a hybrid defense system that combined Council organic technology with human unpredictability. Where Council systems sought perfect balance, human additions introduced controlled instability, making the whole system stronger through its imperfections. High Counselor Rithval entered the command center, accompanied by Professor Krell. Show me, she commanded. Harrison activated the main display, revealing a network of interconnected defense platforms. Traditional Council shields try to create perfect barriers, he explained. We've modified them to flex and adapt instead. When hit, they don't just resist, they learn and evolve. Like human muscle fibers, Krell observed, her crystalline form shifting with interest. The more stress they endure, the stronger they become. Exactly, Harrison grinned. We're teaching your technology to embrace stress as an opportunity for growth. Across the hub, similar collaborations were yielding equally revolutionary results. Human medical specialists worked with Council biotechnology experts, combining Earth's brutal but effective trauma care with the Council's elegant regenerative techniques. The result was a new approach to healing that was both more efficient and more adaptable. Commander Santos joined them, reviewing the progress reports. The Drachnids did us a favor, she mused. Nothing brings people together like a common enemy. That's another thing we don't understand, Tornval admitted. How can you be so focused on defense yet so eager to share knowledge? Aren't you worried we might someday use these improvements against you? Santos's response surprised them. Of course we are. But that's not a reason not to improve. Humanity learned long ago that you can't prevent others from becoming stronger, you can only ensure you keep growing stronger yourself. By working together, Rithval realized, her markings pulsing with sudden understanding. Exactly, Santos nodded. We don't stay ahead by holding others back. We advance by pushing forward together, challenging each other to be better. The evidence of this philosophy was all around them. Human engineers weren't just teaching, they were learning, absorbing Council biotechnology principles and already thinking of new applications. Council scientists watched in fascination as humans took their carefully perfected systems and found ways to improve them by deliberately introducing controlled imperfections. Look at this, Harrison called up another display. We've adapted your quantum communication networks using principles from Earth's old shortwave radio. Less elegant, but more robust. Harder to intercept because it embraces random fluctuations instead of trying to eliminate them. Professor Krell's analysis programs were working overtime trying to catalog all the innovations. They're not just combining technologies, she reported to Rithval. They're creating entirely new scientific principles. The humans call it emergence, when simple systems interact to create complex behaviors that couldn't be predicted by studying the parts separately. As the day cycle wound down, Rithval found herself in the observation dome with Santos, watching ships from both their peoples moving in coordinated patterns around the station. "You've changed everything," she said quietly. "No," Santos corrected, "we've changed everything together. That's the real strength of humanity, not that we refuse to accept limits, but that we inspire others to push past their own limits too." The stars above them seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the new possibilities opening up before them. The Council had feared humanity would disrupt their careful order, and they had been right, but not in the way they'd expected. Instead of breaking things, humans were showing them how to become stronger through controlled disruption, how to grow through calculated chaos. "We have a message from the Council's Strategic Committee," the station's AI announced. "They're requesting immediate implementation of the new defense systems across all Council space. Priority status approved." Santos smiled. "And that's how change happens. Not through force, but through demonstration. Show people a better way, and they'll choose it themselves." The galaxy was transforming, not through conquest or competition, but through collaboration. Humanity had brought more than their technology and tactics, they brought their endless drive to improve, their ability to see opportunities in obstacles, and most importantly, their willingness to share these gifts with others. The age of isolation was over. The era of shared growth had begun. One standard year after the Drachnid incident, the transformed Council Station hosted a gathering unprecedented in galactic history. Representatives from over 300 species filled the Grand Chamber, their diverse forms illuminated by the light of distant stars. The occasion, the ratification of the new Galactic Charter. High Counselor Rithval stood at the central platform alongside Commander Santos, who had become Earth's first ambassador to the Council. The Chamber's holographic displays showed the fruits of their year-long collaboration, new colonies thriving on previously uninhabitable worlds, revolutionary medical techniques saving lives across the galaxy, and defense systems that had made the Drachnid raiders a distant memory. A year ago, Rithval began, her markings glowing with pride. "We feared humanity would destabilize our carefully maintained order. We were right, but we were also wrong about why that mattered." The assembled delegates murmured in agreement. The changes of the past year had challenged thousands of years of galactic tradition, yet had made them all stronger. Professor Krell, recently appointed as head of the new Hybrid Technologies Division, displayed the latest statistics. The integration of human innovation with Council biotechnology has accelerated our development beyond all projections. But more importantly, it has changed how we approach problems. The evidence was everywhere. Council ships now incorporated human-inspired, controlled chaos principles in their design. Human colonies used Council organic architecture to create cities that grew and adapted to their inhabitants' needs. But the most profound changes were philosophical. Lieutenant Harrison, who had become a respected figure in Council engineering circles, demonstrated their latest project. "This is more than just combining technologies," he explained, showing how their new systems actively sought out challenges to become stronger. "It's about embracing a fundamentally new way of thinking about progress." The Chamber's AI interrupted with an urgent message. A spatial anomaly had been detected at the edge of Council space, the kind of phenomenon they would have once avoided as too dangerous to study. Now, dozens of ships from various species were already coordinating a research expedition. "That's the real change," Santos observed quietly to Rithval. "Not that they're willing to take risks, but that they're excited about them." The new charter reflected this transformation. Where the old Council had emphasized stability and caution, the new articles spoke of calculated innovation and collaborative advancement. Most importantly, they enshrined the principle that true security came not from maintaining the status quo, but from constantly evolving together. "We have a saying on Earth," Santos addressed the Chamber. "A rising tide lifts all boats. By sharing our knowledge, by challenging each other to improve, we all grow stronger." Zyxtal, whose initial research had first alerted the Council to humanity's unique nature, added their own observations. We thought humans were dangerous because they never stopped pushing boundaries. Now we understand that this trait, when properly channeled, is exactly what our civilization needed. The ratification vote was unanimous, another unprecedented event. As the chamber erupted in celebration, Rithval noticed something remarkable. The various species weren't maintaining their usual careful separation by biological type. They were mixing freely, sharing ideas, making plans. The humans' infectious enthusiasm for possibility had spread throughout the galaxy. Look at them, Krell marveled. They're all thinking like humans now, seeing challenges as opportunities, seeking out new problems to solve. Not thinking like humans, Santos corrected. Thinking like themselves, but without the limits they used to accept. That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy, not our technology or our tactics, but our refusal to accept that anything is truly impossible. As the celebration continued, new projects were already being planned. Expeditions to previously unexplored regions, attempts to solve long-abandoned scientific challenges, and innovations that would have once been dismissed as too radical to consider. The galaxy had not just survived humanity's arrival, it had been transformed by it. Not through conquest or competition, but through humanity's greatest strength, their ability to inspire others to reach beyond their own limitations. As the station's day cycle drew to a close, Rithval and Santos stood in the observation dome, watching ships of all species moving together in the darkness of space. The stars seemed closer somehow, more accessible. "What's next?" Rithval asked. Santos smiled, looking out at the infinite expanse before them. "That's the best part," she said. "We get to find out together." The galaxy had entered a new age. Not an age of human dominance, but an age of shared ambition, where every species had learned that their only true limits were the ones they chose to accept. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in galactic history, that uncertainty was seen not as a threat, but as an invitation to explore, to grow, to become more than they had ever imagined possible.